Hello and thank you for coming to my channel. This is Rick's Garage, and today we're going to start to build the Team Suzuki ECSTAR GSX-RR 20 from Tamiya. Okay, and as you can see in our instructions here on step 1, we've got a lot of pieces we have to put together. We got a lot of painting that we have to do and a couple other detail work. So what I'm going to do first, I've already got these all taken off their sprue. They've all been sanded down. And I'm going to take this out to get all of the pieces painted as they're called for here in the instructions. I'll come back and show you how this is all put together. Okay, so I got everything all painted up the way it's called for in the instructions. And I'm going to take this piece here and take this support bar, put it into that hole right there. Let me take this part right here, match it up like so. Snap it into place, and then we'll glue that in just like that. So I'm going to take a little bit of glue and glue it in from underneath so I don't ruin my paint job. Okay, so we got that piece in. Okay, next we want to take this piece here, and following the detail that you see here, you have the same type of detail on this piece here. So we're just going, then you have a lug right here, which is going to match up to a little indent that you see right there. So this is going to go in just like this. Just like that. And then we're going to glue it in from right behind. Just take a little bit of glue right down into here. To hold that into place. Okay, now next we have this piece here. I'm going to take this piece right here looking like that, and with this piece in this orientation and this piece here in this orientation, we're going to put it on top of these two lugs right here. Just like that. And then we're going to take our engine that we're working on this way around, and then we're going to put this piece on right like that and glue that in. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. There's a ridge right here where this is going to rest on. So you're going to put this in just like this. Put it in the camera so you can see. It's going to go in just like that, nice and flush, and it should snap right into place, just like that. We'll glue that right in. Okay, now that's how that should look once all that's installed. Okay, then we're going to take this piece here, and that's just going to snap in right in here like that. Okay, so that's how our engine is looking at right now. Again, there's this gap right here, and I'm not too sure why that's like that, but this piece is in correctly. Okay, now we need to work on this piece here. Now there are a couple of details that we need to add to it. We need to paint this part right here in X32, which I think is a silver color, and then we have a decal that goes into these two holes right here, and then we also have a polycap that we need to install. So I'm actually going to use something else in this piece. I'm going to add some details from the detail up kit, which is what it's calling for right here. So let me get these on, and I'll come back and show you what this piece looks like. Okay, now on the detail up set, the photo etch parts, what they want you to do, these are really, really super tiny little dots. We're going to go onto these 3 points right here. So rather than paint them in titanium silver, I'm going to try to put these little tiny dots on these little tiny pegs. And then these circles right here, these little tiny circles, they have like a star pattern to them, and I'm going to attempt to put them into here. So this is going to be really microscopic work, and it's going to take just the tiniest bit of super glue, because these are photo etch parts, to place on them those little tiny areas. So I'm going to do this off camera, and hopefully when I come back I'll show you a little bit of success. Okay, now I don't know if you can see it or not on camera, but these two circles right here have star details in them. And then these 3 points here, here, and here have those photo etch parts glued on. And I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up or not. But that was not easy. These two pieces here, they were somewhat easy to do, but trying to get those little tiny bits to go centered onto these little tiny areas right here, that was not easy to do, but I think I got it. So I'm going to set this down for those to dry before we move on to the next step. Okay, now that we have this piece all painted up and assembled, we now need to take a poly cap according to the instructions right here. And there's two different sizes. There's a gray poly caps that are on a sprue, and there's a large black poly cap. It's the large black poly cap that we want. We're going to take that, we're just going to place it into this hole right here on the back of this part. Just like that. Then we're going to take our engine that we've been working on. We're going to put this right over this hole right here, and then match it up to this little indent right here. So this is going to go on, whoops, something like this. And that kind of snaps right into place. And that completes step one. So this is what our engine looks like after completing step one. Okay, I wanted to show where I'm currently at in the build. I'm still working on step number 2, and I have completed this part here. I painted it in the 2 colors that it calls for in the instructions. So that's coming along pretty well. I still have some photo etch parts that need to go in there by the detail upset. Got these gaskets that has to be applied. And then I'm also working on, I think this is the clutch, I'm not too sure, but this is a detail upset part that I'm still currently working on, and that's this construction right here. Just what you see here took all day long, probably about maybe 2 hours or more to do. Those little tiny bits that you see there, hopefully the camera's picking up the reflections. Those are extremely tiny, tiny, tiny. And the only way that I was able to get those in is to use a head of a pin, and with the slightest amount of glue, I used Krystal clear just so that the pin can pick up those pieces, and then using thin super glue on the part, I was able to get those pieces in there because those are so small. They're about the size of a pinprick. That's how small they are. So I'm still working on that, and the next step now is to construct all these pieces right here so that when we're done we're going to have a clutch that looks like that. Another piece here that I had to do from the detail upset is this piece right here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer so you can see that. That's this part here, and what that is, that's going to go on to the engine right here. So that's this part right here, and the original plastic part is right there. So you can see the difference between the two. So I'm still working on the engine, and then part of the construction of that clutch is to get all these pieces right here all constructed, and that's all the parts that are on this sheet right here. Now they do say to use, you can use either a 6 or a 28 on this ladder looking piece right here that's going to go around the bottom, that's going to give us this design. And those two pieces are on these cards right here. Now this is, they both look, the design is exactly the same. This is 28 and this is number 6 right here, as you can see. And they both look exactly the same. If you look at them, see if I can't get this so you can see them. they both look exactly the same in terms of the design. The only difference between this one and this one is that this is a thinner piece of metal. This is a lot thicker, and this is a lot thinner. So that's the only two differences you have. I think it's great that they gave you two of these, just in case you make a mistake. This one I'm going to probably not do. I'm not going to start off with. I'm going to start off with this one. This is a little bit more thicker, and I think it will form a little bit easier because I'm going to use this dowel to make it round so that I can put it onto the part a lot easier. And I think this is going to be a lot easier to work with because it's thicker, and I think it would keep the form a lot better using this method. So I just wanted to show where I'm at right now on the build. I've already got also too, this part right here has been painted, and that is this piece right here that's going to go on there. So this is a very involved step. This is taking quite a long time to do. We also have these three pieces right here that we have to do, and those are right here, which is on the detail upset. So those are going to be all photo etched. And then we also have these little tiny bits right here that we have to also paint, and they're going to go onto this piece right here that we've already got painted and ready to go for the next step. So this has actually taken me, I started this piece, this step yesterday, and I completed this. I started it around 10 o'clock. I completed it around, well, taking an hour for lunch, around about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon is how long that took. Because I also had to wait for the paint to dry too, because this is a this is brown. This is a metallic brown that they call for in the instructions. So I had to wait for the primer to dry, then I had to wait for the paint to dry, the color, and then I started to assemble it. So I just wanted to show where I'm at, and once all these pieces are all done, all the photo etch is done, I'll come back and show you how they all go in the engine. Okay, I wanted to pause a little bit on the construction of the clutch that I'm working on here, and I'm assembling these gears here. All these gears, and all those gears, those pieces are on this card right here. And you're going to start off with a gear, which is over here in the top left corner. Then you're going to have a washer, then a gear, a washer, a gear, and a washer, and you're going to go all through these lines in that order to where that when you end up, you're going to have a gear on the bottom, you're going to have a gear on the top. And as you're assembling it, your assembly should look like this as you're putting it together. All those gears, all those teeth are in perfect alignment. And the way I'm doing it, as you can see, I've got these wires that are going through the holes that you see here. Each piece has 3 holes. And those 3 holes with these wires are going to help align each piece up perfectly. And what I'm using is this 24 gauge wire. And I use this for a lot of things. I use it for my die-cast models. Mostly I put those wires in the HT tubes for the spark plug leads, or any type of a tube where I want to mold it into a certain shape on the model. And they're very thin and they're very pliable, so they're easy to move around. So now I'm going to take my washer, and I call it a washer because it looks like one, and I'm going to now slip it onto my assembly here. Notice I'm not gluing anything yet. And then this one's going to go into that hole there. There we go. And then we just push it all the way down, just like that. Then I'm going to hold it with my fingers, like this. Now the washer is on this side here. I'm going to hold it in like that. I'm going to take my pin vise, dip it into some thin super glue. You want to use thin super glue because you want it to go in to the seams, into the cracks underneath here, so that the capillary action draws that glue in underneath and seals everything in. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over and do the other side. Do the same thing. Just run a little bit of thin super glue around the inside of the ring. Okay, then I'm going to take my tweezers, these right here, and I'm then going to press it down tight so that it now is flush and tight to the assembly. And that's how I'm doing it. So now the next one I'm going to do is the gear, and every time I remove one of these I also file down the edges so I know that there's no burrs on there. I take the burrs off. and then just repeat that process. And as you move along, you want to make sure that, do another inspection here, and make sure that everything is all tight all the way around. Nothing is coming loose. And it isn't. And that's what you have. Growing or assembling, piece by piece, a ring of gears. And I'm just going to continue on with that. So if you're thinking about doing the clutch and the detail upset and wanting to know how to get those gears all lined up, this is one solution that you may want to try, because it's working out great for me. Okay, so now that we have our clutch done, you can see here just like that, it's time to put some pieces onto the engine. Start completing stage 2 here, or step 2. So we're going to take our clutch, I'm going to put it on this large lug right there, and we don't glue that in, so that can actually turn. Okay, just like that. Okay, now the next thing we need is this piece right here, and that's going to go on right here. Now you'll notice that there is a shiny little photo etch detail there. I don't know why we need to put that in, but the instructions say that we do, so I did. And we're going to put this photo etch right on top of that piece right there. And I'm going to do that off camera because my camera is going to be in the way, so I'm going to do this off camera and come back and show you what that looks like. And then that's how that's looking. Okay, next we're going to take this little cap right here and put it in right there. It's a little bit of Tamiya thin cement. Just like that. Okay, now next we take this piece here, and I've already got the photo etch gaskets on, as you can see, and that's going to go right on top just like that. Might add just a little bit of glue around the seam. That's how that's looking. Pretty good. Okay, I made a mistake. The gaskets that I put up here should not have gone up here. They actually really need to go right here. So I just removed them here. Luckily the glue had not dried all the way, and I then just moved them right down into this area right here. And then this detail part right here from the photo etch is going to go into these areas right here as it's indicated in the instructions, because we're going to be replacing that part for these pieces right here. And I got a little confused because the way this part is right here, I was kind of concerned about these half moon shapes that you see in here, and I thought maybe some pipes were going to go into those areas. And when I looked at the actual part over here, you can see that those parts on the kit have a half moon shape there, so these were just going to press into this area here. So this is just a matter of following the instructions on the detail upset to create that. It's very simple, and then all you need to do is just take your tweezers and very carefully apply that right like that, and you'll have your part in. So I'm going to go ahead and create 3 of those and put those in where they need to go. And then the last thing that I need to do is to paint these up. These pieces up here, and then those are those pieces right here, and then put them up on this area right here. So let me get all that done, come back, show you what that looks like, and then we can go on to the next step. Okay, now the last thing that we need to do in step number 2 is to get these bits on this right here, and I've already got them painted and ready to go. Now they do have locating lugs that goes into these locating holes, and they are directional. So following those hole patterns, you'll be able to put these bits in the correct orientation. So I'm going to get those on, come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, and that's how that looks once that is installed. Now these are actually different. They're going in different than the way you can see here in the picture. So in the instructions, these black parts right here, they all go in one direction. But on mine, according to the holes in the lugs and how the lugs were formed and how they went into these holes. One goes up, or two go down on the sides, and the two in the center goes up. If you look at these little black posts right here. And in the instructions, it indicates that they all go in one direction. So I don't know what that's all about, but this is the only way that those bits can go into that part right there. I really don't think it matters, but I thought I would point it out. When you take these off the sprue, pay very close attention to how you cut them off, because it will be very easy for you to cut off these top posts right here. So be very careful when you're cutting this off the sprue. Okay, now step 2 was pretty well involved. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see where we're at. And there was a lot of photo etch going on here, a lot of photo etch. This actually took about 2.5 days to complete. This was extremely long. This took 2-3 hours to do. You're actually building the clutch from scratch, almost. You got all those gears in there, and then you have this photo etch on top of those gears, and then you paint this, and you got to get all those little silver photo etch parts, those little round discs in the area that they need to go in. Now you can only probably see the large ones, but along the edge, all along the edge here, see if I can't point that out for you. All along the edge, you might be able to see one here, there's one there, and there's another one there. Those are little tiny dots, little tiny silver photo etch dots that are no bigger than a pinprick. That took a very long time. That was very difficult to get those in. So this one piece actually took almost a half a day. But those are all the bits that are in. We have all these pieces right here that are in. We've got these photo etch parts that are in, these pieces here, and this is coming along pretty good. So on to step 3 now. Okay, still working on step 3. We have all of our parts over here, and they've all been painted to the colors that are called for the instructions. We also have some photo etch parts. Added a hose clamp to that. As you can see, we have these 2 photo etch parts right here as well that we need to also put onto the engine that I constructed off of the instructions that we see here on our detail upset. So the first thing that we need to do now is to start to apply these parts to where they need to go. And this right here, all painted up in the color that it needs to be. We take this part right here, and that's just going to fit on just like that. So I need to glue that into place. Okay, so I'm just going to take a little bit of glue, put it a little bit on there like so, and then get this piece applied. Goes on just like that. Okay, next what we need to do is take our engine in this configuration like this, and then this is going to go on just like this, kind of like sort of snaps into place, put it on just like that. So I'm just going to put it on just a little bit of glue on the underside of this, just like that. And we have these 2 lugs right here, a lug here, a lug hole here, and a lug hole right there, which is where these 2 lugs are going to fit in. So I'm also going to put in just a little bit of glue here, and a little bit of glue there. And then this is just going to go right on top of that like so, just like that. Okay, now we take this part here, and following the curvature of this piece right here, and then there's a lug hole right down there. This is going to then, this lug is going to go into this lug hole here, and it's going to match up just like this, and we'll glue that right into place. And that's how that looks once that's installed. Okay, now next we're going to take our hose pipe, looking like this, and with our engine in this configuration, this part of the hose right here, this lug, it's going to go over this hole here, and then the end of this pipe is going to go into that hole right here. So let me get that in. And that's how that looks once that's installed. Looking pretty good. Now with our engine still in this configuration here, we're going to put a couple of Photoetch parts on. We put a Photoetch part here, this one here. I'm going to turn this over so you can see it. Right there. That's going to go on this shaped part right here. And then this little Photoetch part is going to go in this area right here. So let me get those on and show you what that looks like. Okay, there's our Photoetch parts in place. And this is how our engine is looking at the end of stage 3. Now, just to give you an idea, I started this 4 days ago. So I'm only on stage 3 or step 3, and it's taken me 4 days to complete step 3, or up through to step 3. So this is how slow I'm going on this build. Okay, so we're going to be starting to work on step 4. I'm going to remove all these parts from the sprue, get them painted to the colors that are called for, and come back and get those assembled onto the engine. Okay, so I have all the pieces all painted for step number 4 in the colors that are indicated in the instructions. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this piece and we're going to put it on top of this piece here. Now, it does have a locating lug. So this piece here on the back side has a place for a lug to go in. I don't know if the camera can see it or not, but it is right there. And on this piece here, there's a locating lug that you can see right here at the very top above that oval. And I'm just going to match that lug to that indent that we just saw, and it's going to go on just like that. And that's how that looks once that's attached. There's the bottom side, and that's the top side. Okay, we're going to put that aside here, let that dry. And the next thing that we want to do is that we want to assemble these two pieces together. And I've already done that off camera. I've put them together, sanded it down so that you don't see a seam right here. And we painted it into the gold paint that it calls for in the instructions. And the way that this goes on is that there are some lugs right here, 2 lugs right here, here and here, that are going to match up to these 2 lug holes right there and there. So this is going to go on just like this. Just like that. Okay, now you want to take this piece here that we worked on previously, and you'll notice that there's a lug here. See if I can get the camera to focus. There's a lug here and a lug there. That's going to match up to the hole here and to the indent right there. So this is going to go in something like this. Go in just like that, and it's going to match into those holes. It's going to go in something like that. So let me get this in and show you what that looks like. And that's how that looks once that's installed. Okay, next what we want to do, we want to take this part here that we worked on previously, and then we want to take this part, and you'll notice that there is a lug here and a little bit of a notch right there. And there's a locating hole here, and there's a little bit of a raised area here, almost like a lug. And then you also have this post right here at the very end. You want this post to be on the same side as this detail. So when we put this in, it's going to go in something like this. And that's how that looks once that's installed. Okay, unfortunately my camera was not running when I was installing this piece right here. It is directional. There is a locating lug on that black piece. And if you look at the instructions really carefully, you will notice that there is a locating indent right here, or recess right there. That recess is going to match the lug that's on the back of this part here to make sure you put it in the right way. But that's how that looks when that's installed. And you'll also notice too that this part here fell off. If you're making the clutch from the detail upset and you're doing all those photo etches that I had shown previously in this video, the polycap that we put in this area right here is too big for this lug on the back here, so it doesn't fit. It just kind of just very loosely goes in. It's more designed for the stock part that comes with a kit. So I'm just going to keep this off and put that in a safe place until it's actually needed to be put on the engine. Okay, now the way this piece is going to go on, you notice that there's a slot here and a slot here. Nothing goes into this little hole here. What is going to happen is that these two posts that you see here are going to slip into these little notches right here. So let me get this on and show you how this is going to look. Okay, so that's how that fits in. These two lugs right here, these two silver posts, are going to suspend this part in that position. So it kind of raises it. So that's how that looks. Okay? Alright, now, after this is dried completely, what you want to do is you want to take your engine in this configuration here, turn this around so that these two lugs are going to fit into these two holes over here. And this is going to fit in just like that. But I want to wait for this part to completely dry first. Okay, now that this had a chance to dry thoroughly, these two lugs here are going to go into these two holes here. So this is going to go on something like that. So let me get this on, and we'll come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, that's seated on. Let that thoroughly dry. You want to make sure that it is fully seated straight onto those posts or into the holes there that it's supposed to go into. So that should look just like that. Now, this is the last piece that we put on, and this is going to give this a chance to thoroughly dry as we move on to step number 5. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these pieces off their sprues and paint everything in the colors that they call for, come back and start assembling. Okay, here are the pieces that we have for step 5, and there are just 2 of them, and I've already painted them up in the colors that it calls for in the instructions. And you'll notice here, if I can zoom in just a little bit, you'll notice that I have put in some weld lines in through here. Now this is Photoetch. This is part of the detail upset. So I've added some weld lines here, 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 and I've also added some weld effects on the side. I don't know if the camera can pick that up or not. So it's a little bit more realistic in terms of welding. You've got some side effects from the welding that goes onto the actual chassis, for the lack of a better term. I don't know if this is really called a chassis or not for a motorcycle. But at any rate, this is all Photoetch. Now the plastic part has weld lines or a raised weld area here, and it doesn't have the details of the welds like the Photoetch part does. So if you are thinking about doing the Photoetch welding, my advice to you is to sand down the plastic weld lines and make them smooth to the plastic part. Don't sand it down to where you can't really see it, because you need some reference on where to put the Photoetch part. But sand it down as much as you can, leaving just a little bit of a hint around so you can see where to put the Photoetch, but you want to just sand that down. And the reason why is because the plastic part, those weld lines are kind of a raised, rounded shape, and it makes it very difficult to put a rounded or a flat Photoetch part on a rounded shape and make it look good. So I sanded it all down, and then I applied the Photoetch. Okay, so got I got all this all painted up, and the way I'm going to do this now is we're going to then attach these two together like it says in the instructions. So essentially this is going to go on. Now there is a locating lug here and down here, and there's a notch here and locating lug up here. So this is pretty simple to do. You're just going to match these two areas together like this, just like that, and it glues in at the front. So this entire front area gets glued in looking like that. And then in the back, see if I can't hold on to this. Now in the back, we're going to put this piece back here to stabilize it. And this part here goes into this these kind of cone shape support areas, and this can only go in one way. Just follow the shape. So let me get this in. Let me glue this together. I'll come back and show you what that all looks like. Okay, this is our mainframe. They call this the mainframe. They don't call it the chassis. In the instructions, it's referred to as the frame here. And this is all how it looks when it's all put together. Just like that. And then of course we have our support piece right down there looking just like that. So now the next thing that we need to work on is the some of the parts here. We're going to put the engine into this part here. Oh, one other thing that you have to do, you do have to drill a hole as it's indicated here, and that 1mm hole is right there. Hopefully the camera can pick that up, but it's right in that spot right here. Okay, so on step number 6, we just have a couple of pieces that we need to do to paint, and I'm in the process of painting that right now. And then we're going to be putting in the engine, and I'm still going to wait for this to thoroughly dry. But the way the engine goes in is that you've got a screw hole here. So you got the screw hole right there, and then you have one on the opposite side right here. And then right down here you have these screw holes here and here. And they're going to line up with this screw hole here and the screw hole right down here. So this is going to go in something like this. You got to be very careful, because when you put engines in these frames, you can actually break off some external parts. So this is going to go on something like that, where you line up the screw hole here, and then you line up this screw hole right down here, right like that. So we'll put that in on the next stage when we're ready to. But again, I want to wait for this to really, this frame to really dry before I do that. And then we have a couple other parts that we need to paint, and then we're going to be doing the dashboard, putting a couple of decals on the dashboard, and that would then complete step number 6. So again, I'm in the process of doing these parts. I'll come back, finish those up, get them on the bike, and show what it looks like, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, now that this has had a chance to thoroughly dry, we can move on to step 6. And the first thing that we want to do is to take this part here, and we're going to put it onto the frame right underneath here. So this is going to go on just like that. Okay, now next we want to take this piece here, which has already been pre-painted to the colors that calls for in the instructions. This is a 2-color piece here, where you have a silver, and then after that you apply a little bit of clear blue. And I airbrushed all that in. I didn't do that by a hand brush. I thought that a airbrush would be the best way to go. Now you'll notice that on this piece here that there are 2 lugs sticking out underneath, and those 2 lugs are going to go into this little void right here that you see. So we're going to get that in. Okay, you want to make sure that that piece is all nice and flush, and it also is flush here at the very bottom. Okay, now next we're going to now put in the dashboard, which I have right here, which has already been pre-painted, and the decals are applied, and there are 2 lugs on the back of the dash. Whoops, 2 lugs on the back of the dash here and here, and those 2 lugs are going to rest onto these recesses that you see right here. Those recesses are right here. You have one here and you have one over here. And then it's also going to attach up here at the very top. So let me get that in, come back and show what that looks like. And that's how that looks when all that's installed. Now I did put some clear gloss on top of that decal on the speedometer to simulate glass on top of the decal. Okay, now it's time to put our engine in place. And the engine is going to go in, as I showed before. There are 2 screw holes, one here and one over here, and then down here, these 2 holes right here, they're going to match up to these 2 holes right down here. And the screws that you're going to need are these 2 screws. There are 2 different sizes. There's a screw here size, which is a 1.2 by 4 mil screw, and down here this is a 1.2 by 6 mil screw. And the way that you can determine which screw is which in your bag of screws, which you have right here, is to take the screw and match it up to the screw right here, because this is all, let me zoom in a little bit more for you, because this is printed to size. So I'm going to take my screws and find my right screw by matching up the picture to the actual screw. Okay, now the way this is going to go in, so I'm going to take the engine, go up just like this, I'm going to match those two screw holes here on the other side as well. So they're going to go in just like that. Now I'm going to put those screws in a little loose so that I can line up properly the back end here. So let me get those screws in. Okay, there's our engine into our frame. Went in pretty well, not real any big problems, though I do recommend that you pre-screw your holes everywhere that this is connected to. So pre-screw here, pre-screw over here, and you also want to pre-screw right down in this area as well, because those holes are very tight, and that little tiny screwdriver that they give you really didn't do the job for me. I ended up having to use my PH screwdriver here. This is a PHO screwdriver, and this is what I had to use in order to get those screws in because they were very, very tight. So again, I recommend that you pre-screw these holes in. But that is our engine, all done and complete in the frame. Looking pretty good. Okay, now we're going to move on to step number 7. We have all these parts I have to take off, sand them down, and paint them to the colors that they're called for in the instructions. We'll come back and start assembling step number 7. Okay, these are all the pieces that we need for step 7. And these poly caps come with a kit. And all these other pieces here also come with the stock kit, except for this spring. This spring came in the detail upset that I also bought here. This is from Tamiya. I'll put a link in the descriptions where I got this. Now this kit contains a lot of different other parts. It contains some metal parts right here for the fork, a couple other plastic detail parts. Comes with some carbon fiber decals, and here in the background, I don't know if you can see it or not, these are Photoetch. So it comes with a lot of different types of parts that you can add to it. It also looks like we got a couple other smaller details here that we can put in. Looks like a yellow light or maybe a gold bolt of some sort and a silver bolt. We'll find out where that goes a little bit later. But I'll go ahead and put a link in the descriptions where I got this. And this is already painted, pre-painted in that detail kit in the color that it calls for in the instructions. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, other than right here, this just, again, tells you how to paint this part here and how to paint these two pieces right here. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to take our rod that we painted in a clear yellow. This is metal. We take this piece right here, and there is a concave part and there's a raised section. You want to put your metal rod with the flat nub pointing up. So you want to put the smooth end first so that nub goes into that concaved area, just like that. Then we're going to put it on this piece here around this round circle that you can see right here, like a little bit of a lug right there. So that's going to go on just like that. We're going to glue that right in place. And that's how that looks once that's glued into place. Okay, next, following the instructions, we need to get 2 poly caps off of this sprue. So we're just going to take these poly caps and put those in. Okay, it's a little fiddly to get those in, but that's how they should look once that's in like that. Okay, then we're going to take this piece right here, and we're going to put that in just like that, and then we're going to take this piece, and we're going to sandwich all that into place. One thing that I do want to point out, you'll see that there's a notch right here. I almost missed this. There's a notch right there, and that's going to go into the slot that's right there. And that's going to prevent this from turning. So that actually should lock right into place. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and glue that shut and secure those poly caps in. Okay, now once you have this constructed, the rest is pretty simple. Put your spring on here like this, and then you slip your metal rod into that hole through those poly caps that we put in just a few moments ago. When it's all constructed, you have your rear damper assembled, looking just like that. And that completes step 7. Okay, in step 8, we work on the swing arm, and the kit calls for the swing arm to be painted in LP40, which is a sparkling silver. I'm not going to be painting the bike in the colors that the kit calls for in terms of what is on the outside of the bike. So when it calls for the colors for the silver, I'm going to zoom out here so you can see the cover. The silvering and the blue, I'm going to be using a different paint, and that's these two paints right here that I got, and I'll put a link in the descriptions below. These paints are specifically formulated for this bike in terms of the colors that the bike has, which is the silver and the blue. This has a little bit of silvering in it, and the silver has a little bit of blue in it. So those are the two colors I'm going to be using, and I'll put a link in the descriptions where I got those. So on here, I'm going to go ahead and just get these off the sprue, sand them down, and then also paint them up to the colors, and then put our decals on. And then when we come back, we'll go ahead and assemble stage 8, and then step 9, we then get to complete the swing arm by putting in our metal chain. Okay, in step 8, we'll work on the swing arm, and I've gone ahead and primed them up. And I've also done some sanding where I found some imperfections after doing the primer. So I'll sand that down, as you can see. Now I'm ready to put these two pieces together, just like this. That goes on just like that. You want to make sure that these tabs that you see right here go underneath each other, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that in, and then I'm going to try to work on getting rid of that seam. Okay, we have our swing arm. I'll paint it up in the colors that it calls for in the instructions. Now the silver paint, remember, I'm using this paint that I got, and again, I will put a link in the descriptions and where I got this. And I then also painted the trim in the color that it calls for, which I believe is a semi-gloss black from Tamiya. And then I masked off the black and applied a coat of Tamiya clear on top of the silver. And then I applied my decal, and then I did some masking to apply another couple of coats of clear on the silver there, so that that is now all protected. And next, what we need to do, we have some details that we need to actually add on to the swing arm. So we're on this stage right here, so step number 8, and we have a couple of details that we need to add on to the on the swing arm, and then we also need to get the shock over here also installed. So this is a part right here that we need to apply or to put on, and the way that goes on is that you turn this over like this, and you see that there are two holes right here, and there's a large hole or a deep hole, and there's a shallow hole that's going to match up to the, hopefully the camera can see this, a large lug and a small lug to help you orientate this correctly. So this is really going to go in something like this. Whoops. Do that again. It's going to go on like that. If I can balance it in there. There we go. It's going to go on something like that. So let me get that glued in. And there's that piece in. And then we have this piece right here, which is a little tricky to do, but it has a large lug here at the end, which is going to go into this large hole here. And then the other end is going to slip into this little notch. So let me get this in and show you what that looks like. And that's how that looks once that's installed. Looking just like that. Okay, and then still working on the same side. These two holes right here is where this piece is going to go. So let me get that in. And that's how that should look when that's fully engaged. Okay, now next we want to take our rear damper that we worked on in the previous step, and we want to place it into our swing arm. So with our swing arm in this position like this, I'm going to take our rear damper like so. We're going to turn it around in this way around, lower it down like this, go into that notch that you see there at the top, and we're going to secure that in with a 1.2 by 8 mil screw. Now remember, when you get your screws out of your bag, you want to match your screw up to, and I'll zoom this in, you're going to match your screw up to the picture that's in the instructions to make sure that you have the right screw. And that's how that looks once that's installed, and it does move about a bit. It's very loose in there. Even though the screw is tight, this does move around just a little bit. That's how that looks once that's installed. And that completes step number 8. Now for step number 9, the only thing that we need to do is we need to take this plastic piece and put it on the back of our metal chain that we're making. And you do this just like you would do it on the plastic chain, and that goes in just like that. Now if you can't get this plastic part to go flush to your metal chain, what I did was I took a drill bit. I took a 1mm drill bit. Now I'll put a link in the description where I got this kit. It has a whole bunch of different size drill bits. I just went into the holes that are on the side here. Let's see if the camera can see this or not. Zoom that in. And I just took my drill bit and I just rolled it around like that, just a little at a time, until this piece fit flush to my chain. Okay, so now once this part has had a chance to dry, all we have to do then is just put it into our swing arm. And the way we're going to do that, very gently, move this apart, because this is the broken part, or the cut part that we used, that we cut earlier when we were assembling the chain. Put it in like this, around like so, and then put this peg right into the back of the gear, just like that. And then we got our chain on our bike, or on the swing arm. And that completes step number 9. Okay, in step 10 it's pretty self-explanatory. It's all straightforward. We're just going to assemble our front tire, or excuse me, our rear tire, and we're also going to be making a disc brake. Now I'm going to be doing the detail upset and make my disc brake out of metal. Okay, so step 10 is just working on the rear tire, and the rear tire is the large one, the wider one, or the fatter one. And I've removed the seam on the tire by using an 800 Reat sanding stick. And I just sat on the couch, watched a movie, and just started sanding away until that line was gone. And I also completed the Photoetch brake disc, which is this right here, and that's just going to pop on, or plop on, just like that in the center of our rim. But before I actually apply that, we have some decals we have to put on. So the first thing I'm going to do on this rim is that I've already painted this the TS14, which is the gloss black, and I'm in the process now of getting ready to apply a little bit of Tamiya clear on this so I can get the decals on. And then after that, we have right down here, you can see that we have a label that we have to put on the actual tire, on the actual rubber tire. And these are the labels that they're referring to. And you'll notice if you look really close, I'll pull this protective paper off, there aren't any wording on here. So I believe that the wording is on the back. And I think this is almost like a rub-on transfer. But the instructions, the way the instructions are laid out, right here, and I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can read this. The decals, for the tire decals, the decals have an adhesive surface and are covered by a thin protective paper. So we first wipe the tire with a damp cloth, remove the protective paper, which is this right here, which I believe is what they're referring to, and being careful that we don't damage the surface, the adhesive surface. We cut out the decal and peel off the lining. So I believe that there is a lining on top of this. And then you place the decal into position and rub lightly with your finger. Apply moisture with a wet finger. Carefully remove the paper and wipe off excess moisture with a soft cloth. So I think this is almost like a rub-on transfer. I don't know. The instructions are a little bit vague, or not really all that clear. I'm going to do my best to follow the instructions to the letter and see what happens. They do give me, or they do give 2 extra labels in here just in case you make a mistake. And with the star I live under, I'll probably make at least 2 mistakes. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the preparation of the wheel by getting the clear gloss on there, and then work on this label. Okay, so I have the wheel all painted up and got the decals on both sides. And now is the time that we are going to start to work on getting these labels on. Now, I already reviewed with you on the instructions on these labels, and I've never done this type of decaling before. So I'm going to give this a shot, go through it step by step, and how they got it laid out in the instructions. Now, again, according to the instructions on how we do this, get the instructions out, is we wipe the tire surface with a damp cloth. I've already done that. And we remove the protective paper. So we do this like that. Comes right off. Put that aside. And we cut out the decal and peel off the lining using the edge of a blade. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera because these are very tiny and I'm going to need my magnifying glasses. So I'll be right back with that. Okay, so this is where I'm at right now. I decided to first put the wheel onto the, or the tire onto the wheel first, because I was afraid that once I had the labels on the tire, that if I were to put the tire on to the wheel afterward, I would probably damage those labels. So I went ahead and put the rubber tire onto the wheel, and I have got the label now onto the tire. And the way this works so far is that once you've cut your label out, I should have done this on camera, but I didn't. Maybe I'll do it on the second one. But you remove the label from this, then you turn it upside down so that you can see the actual label through the paper. And then you put it onto the tire where you want it to go. Okay, and then what we do is place the decal into position and rub lightly with your finger. I'm going to go ahead and rub lightly with my finger. And I'm pushing that down into the recess of that area there, because that's a recessed area, as you can see. So I'm trying to get that label to go into that recessed concaved area of the tire. It says do it gently, so I'm just kind of pressing down on it. And I think what I might do is take a cotton swab and roll the cotton swab as if I was doing a decal right on top of that label, just like that. Okay. Alright, I guess that's so far so good. Okay, now next it says, after you put it into the position, rubbed it lightly with your finger, apply moisture with a wet finger and carefully remove the paper. So I've got my finger moistened here with some water in this tray, and I'm going to put my finger on top of the paper. So just moisten it with your finger. I can see that the paper on the top, at least it's starting, the label is starting to get a little bit more clear. Push it on just like that. A little bit more water on my finger. Okay, and then it says, carefully remove the paper. So I'm going to try to do that off camera. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that on camera, but let's see how far I can get. So I guess once the paper is wet, take a pair of tweezers and carefully remove that paper on the top, revealing the label. Just like that. Hey, that worked pretty good. Okay, then we just remove some excess water and repeat the process on the other 3 labels that we're going to put onto this tire. So we do 2 in the front and we'll do 2 in the back. Okay, so again I'm going to remove a label or a decal from this card here. Just like that. And I'm being a little quiet as I remove this. So sorry for the silence. We've got a truck backing up in the street somewhere apparently. Okay. Okay, so I made my score marks on here to remove this label, but I also wanted to point out this entire card that you see here, this entire surface is sticky. So that's the glue portion that actually is gluing this label onto the tire. Okay, so now once you've got your decal or your label completely cut away from that card, I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to remove the top layer of this, or the covering, as it indicates. So you want to just, I'm going to go on the other side here. There's a little bit more room. I'm just going to try to remove the paper. There it is right there. I don't know if the camera can see that or not, but I've removed part of it. Then I'm going to take my tweezers and carefully remove the label, as you can see. And when this is totally removed from the paper backing, this is what actually got me, because I talked about removing the paper backing and I thought they meant this, but what they really mean is the paper backing here, because now when you turn this over, you can now see your label. Okay, now with it turned upside down, you place it to where you want it on your tire. And I'm going to make mine to where it is almost even with where it is on the top. So I'm going to turn this around this way, following the curvature of the tire and following the curvature of the label. I'm going to put it up like this. Hopefully the camera can see what I'm doing. Trying to make this as even as possible. So the camera's in my way, so I'm going to try to do a little bit of this positioning off camera. Okay, so that's where I'm going to position mine. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to align the top of the label to the top of this recess area here. I'm not trying to line it to the bottom. I'm trying to line the top of the Michigan, whoops, to the top of that line right there. And you can see it's still a little flimsy because I don't really have that totally pressed into the tire. But that's about where I'm going to place mine. And then again, what we do is that we slightly rev it down into the tire. So we now press the adhesive portion of this, which is basically this portion here, this side here, onto the tire. Now the way I'm doing that is I'm using this Q-tip here, and I'm just pressing it into the recess of the tire. And it says to do this gently, so I'm more or less not rubbing it, I'm pressing down onto it. So that I can see that it's at least into the concaved area of the tire. Okay, now again, as we did before, we take our wet finger and go over the label here, moistening that paper. And then we take our tweezers and remove the paper. Revealing our label. Okay, perfect. That came out pretty well. It was a little bit easier than I thought. The instructions were not totally clear, but I think I cleared them up, any questions or ambiguity in the instructions, by showing you how this is done. So that worked out pretty good. So I'll go ahead and clean up the excess water with my Q-tip and repeat the process on the other side. Okay, and that is our labels and our decals on our tire. So it turned out really well. So now the only thing I need to do now is take our Photoetch brake disc and glue that right there in the center, just like that, and that will then complete step 10. Now I'm also going to replace the protective covering on this to protect the labels, and then I'm going to put this into the bag of other decals just to keep this safe and clean. Okay, so these are all the parts that are needed for step number 11, and the first thing that we're going to be working on is the brake assembly, which are these parts right here, these two parts here. And this is going to be a little fiddly. You're going to need your magnifying glass headset, but you take this part here, and these are all painted in the colors that are called for in the instructions. And then you take this side of the brake disc like this, and there are two little pinholes. I don't know if the camera can pick this up or not. There are two little tiny pinholes right here at the very top. And those two little pinholes are going to match up with these two little tiny pins that are on this piece right here. Hopefully the camera can pick that up too. And when those are attached, they're going to form a ridge or a channel where the brake disc is going to go through. So it's going to look something like this when it's on. So don't know if the camera can see that or not. Let me get this on and glued in place and come back and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, when those two pieces are glued on, that's how that should look. So the brake disc is going to go through that channel. That's how it looks on the front or the bottom, and on the front like that, and then on the back. Now this side back here really isn't going to be seen except for where the brake is. That's why this area here is not painted. That's going to attach to the wheel. But the brake disc itself is going to go through that channel. Now also on this piece there's going to be a decal that's going to go right here at the very bottom underneath that hole. As you can see that it's called for here in the instructions. So as soon as this is dry, I'll get that decal on. Okay, now while that piece is drying, we need to glue this piece into here. So this part here is going to go into this channel right here, but it's only going to go in to match up to the hole that's on this piece here. So this is going to go in like this, and it kind of snaps right into place actually. That's how that's going to look once that's glued in. Okay, that's our wheel assembly on, and that was not easy. The brake assembly kept on falling off as I was trying to get the swing arm in there, and trying to line up the other side for the chain was also a little bit difficult to do, but managed to get that in. So just go ahead and take your time, and the wheel does turn. Okay, now the next thing that we want to do is we want to take our hose, in which they give you a whole bunch of hose here, and we want to cut a length, which I've already done, as you can see here, to a 54 millimeters. And if you line your hose up and you cut it, then you'll end up with 54 millimeters, just like that. So I've got it on the end of a toothpick here to widen up that hole, because we're going to need to attach this end onto that little tiny lug there on our brake assembly. And there's our hose attached. Now I glued mine in. Once you have it on your toothpick, the hose on your toothpick for quite a while, maybe a couple of minutes, then it's going to widen the tube up enough so you can just slip that hose right on. And it goes on a little loose because the hose has been expanded. So you want to glue that into place. I think you actually should glue all your hoses into place, because as you're building it, your bike, the hoses can come off, and if they come off at the wrong time, it may be almost impossible to get those hoses back on. So I always glue mine in. Now the next thing that we want to do is, though, that we're going to have to then thread that hose, I'll bring this over, thread that hose underneath the swing arm, and underneath the swing arm there's a little notch that you can see right there. And that hose is going to go up through that notch and then through the top up here. Okay, there's our hose attached and coming up through the top. I don't have it in the notch yet. I'll do that afterwards. I want to first attach the other end of this hose wherever it's going to go and end up at before I actually run that hose through that little notch there. Okay, now next we want to take this piece here and we're going to put it onto our swing arm assembly as it indicates in the instructions. You want to make sure that you have a locating lug here, and then you have these two little notches that you see right there. The locating lug is going to go into that hole there, and this notch, or this little lug, is going to go through those two notches. And you also want to make sure that your hose goes through this slot here. So this piece is going to go on something like this. Just like that. Okay, next we turn the swing arm assembly over, looking like this, and then following the instructions, we take this piece here and we put it in. There are two notches right here, one there and one there, that this piece is going to fit into. You have these two lugs here on the bottom of this piece, and those two lugs are going to go into those notches. So this is going to go on something like that. And that's how that looks. And that completes step 11. Okay, now step 12 is just doing the stand, which is very simple and easy to do. So we're going to skip that for this video, and we're going to move on to step number 13, where you take the wheel assembly that we were just working on and the engine assembly here, and we're going to then attach this assembly to this assembly. And that's going to go on. Now this is going to be a little bit difficult because this is a metal chain and it's a little bit thicker. What's going to happen is that that middle chain is going to have to, this hole right here is going to have to go into this hole right there, where we're going to then secure it in with a 1.6 by 25 millimeter screw. So this is going to go in something like this at an angle. It's going to go in like that, and this is going to be a little fiddly to do, so I'm going to have to do this off camera, but it's going to go in something like that. So let me get this on and come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so that is our wheel assembly attached to our main frame. The 1.6 by 25 mil screw goes right there, and then you have a 1.2 by 8 mil screw that goes in right there. And you want to make sure that this piece goes in between these 2 points right here, as you can see. And then you also want to make sure that your shock goes in between these 2 points right there. But that is our wheel assembly in place. Now we have a couple of more details that we have to do, which I have right now. The paint is drying. We have, move this over here aside and zoom out just a little bit. We have a screw cover for the 1.6 mil screw that needs to go in, and then we have a little detail part that's going to go on to the small sprocket right here on the chain. And then that will then complete step 13. Okay, we've completed step 13. We have our screw cover here for that long screw, that 1.6 by 25 mil screw there. And we have our detail part on top of the small sprocket of the chain right there. And we also connected our hose that leads from the brake on the other side all the way through and ending up right there. Give you a little bit more of a closer look at that. And then we also, I've completed our stand, so then we can put our motorcycle as it is right now on our stand. I'll get the wheels on later. And there is our motorcycle on our stand. So that just completes up to step number 13. And then we go on to step number 14, where we start working on the exhaust. Okay, in step 14, what we work on is on the exhaust, and I've already got these painted up in the colors that it calls for in the instructions. And the first step is to take this piece here and marry it up to this piece here. And where we're going to do that, with this piece in this way around, this little indent right here, we're going to place this part in. So that's going to go on just like that. Okay, while this is drying, I am going to move over to the photo etch part that's going to go on the end of our assembly. So when all of the pipes for the exhaust are formed, I'm going to use photo etch parts for this. Now this particular photo etch is coming from this detail upset. This is the fork set, the front fork set, and that's where these photo etches are coming from. And what they want you to do, see, I actually primed this in gray primer in preparation to painting them, because I wasn't too sure if I was going to use the photo etch from the other detail upset, which is from this set here, or I was going to use this set here. But I decided to use this, so that's why this is painted in gray. And I'm going to take these photo etch pieces and I'm going to place them on top of these plastic pieces and train the photo etch to curve down into this shape. Okay, now when you're doing photo etch and you cut them off the frame that they come from, you'll notice that there's some burrs on the edges of the photo etch. There's one right here at the tip and another one right here. So you need to take a file, a metal file, and kind of get rid of those burrs. Now this photo etch is pretty thick, or pretty sturdy, but it can bend easily, so be careful as you're filing that you don't bend the photo etch. Now in this particular photo etch we do want it bent, but we want it bent correctly, so again it's still good to be careful not to bend this as you're filing off those burrs. Okay, now once you've filed everything down, it's not too hard to actually form these. I've actually pre-formed mine just a moment ago off camera. But the way that you do it is just put the photo etch right on top of that plastic piece and line it up as best you can, and just press down with your fingers so that it matches the shape of the piece that you're forming it to. And then when you're done, you have yourself a shaped piece. Now these pieces are directional, so you want to make sure that you know which one you're forming it to. So I'm forming this photo etch on part number 16, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little sticker on this that will say 16, so I know exactly where this piece is going to go when it's called for in the instructions. But that's how you form them, just like that. Okay, the reason why I decided to use the photo etch from this detail upset rather than from this detail upset, because from this set here, what they want you to do is they want you to cut this out. So they wanted this this pattern right here that's on the plastic part. They wanted you to cut that entire panel, part out, so it would become hollow, so it'll look like this when you're done. And that was a lot of work. You'd have to use a Dremel drill to do that. They're showing an X-Acto blade, but there's no way. I mean, that is pretty well reinforced plastic. So you'd have to take a Dremel drill, and that's a very tiny piece. And I'm not all that skilled with Dremels, so, particularly with a piece that's this small. So that's why I decided to go with this, is because they've already got that part hollowed out for you already. So all you have to do is just put the photo etch in there and then attach it to your exhaust. So this is a lot easier and quicker way to do it, and that's why I chose it. Okay, moving on with our exhaust assembly. Now we're going to take this piece and move it onto this piece. So this is this piece here, and again you have a indentation here that's going to go right over this indentation right in here. So that is going to go in just like, get that in there, just like that. Okay, now next we take our two sub-assemblies of our exhaust system and we marry them together as it indicates here in the instructions. So this piece is going to go around this way, this one's going to go around like this, and we're just going to marry it up just like that. Okay, I've been working on the ends here for the exhaust, and I discovered something that was pretty interesting. If you get this detail upset, which is the fork detail upset, you will get these surrounds here, which are hollowed out automatically for you. They're already prepared. And you get these silver photo etch. Now these silver photo etch are too big for these surrounds. I'll take one out here and I'll show you. Hopefully I can show you. Okay, so if I take this silver photo etch right here, which again is coming from this detail upset, and I match it up to this surround, you'll notice that the surround is smaller than the photo etch for quite a distance. It actually overhangs quite a lot. Let me get that centered here and show you. So I'm going to line this up just like that and turn it over. You'll notice that there is quite a bit of an overhang. Okay, there we go. And that's interesting because these two pieces come from the same detail upset. And if you take the gold photo etch, which comes from this detail upset, you will notice that it is exactly the right size. I can get this on here like this, line that up. It's exactly the right size, so that fits in just perfectly. And I thought that was interesting. You will also notice too that this gold photo etch fits exactly where it should go right here, nice and flush to the end. If I take the silver photo etch, put it on the same area, it's way too big. I don't know if you can see this on the camera or not, but there is an overhang. There you go. So it's way too big. So if you're going to do the ends in Photoetch, if you're going to do the ends here in the Photoetch and replace the plastic part, replacing these plastic parts, take the gold that comes from this detail upset and the surround that comes from this detail upset, and you should be fine. Again, it's going to match up just perfectly. Get that on there like so, and that lines up just right without a problem. I thought that was interesting, and I thought I should at least let you know about that. Okay, now one of the last pieces that we need to put on is this little tiny piece right here, which is this piece right here, and I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. Right here, that goes right underneath our muffler system, or exhaust system. And this has a half moon shape, and there is a half moon shape hole underneath that's going to match up to. So this is directional, and it's very simple. All you got to do is just match up that half moon shape, and it goes on just like that. Okay, so this is what our muffler, or exhaust, I don't know why I call it a muffler, our exhaust system looks like right now. I'll zoom out just a little bit, and you can see that I've done a little bit of weathering. Hopefully the camera can pick this up, but I do have a little bit of yellowing in through here. This is clear yellow. You'll also notice that there is a little bit of a discoloration between this area here and in there. And I also have a little bit going on over here too, if the camera can pick it up a little bit of discoloration down in through here from the yellowing. I'm going to do a little bit more, but I am in the process of actually weathering this up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and assemble these pieces right here, get those photo etch parts right here installed, and do a little bit more weathering, and I'll come back and show you what the finished product looks like. Okay, now next in step 15, we take our exhaust system and we are going to then attach it to the body of the motorcycle. Now these series of lugs here are going to go into these holes right here, and then this lug that's on the exhaust here is going to go into this hole here, and that hole is going to match up to that screw hole right there. So this is going to go on kind of sort of like this. You got to maneuver around this. So this is going to kind of like go on like this. And get that in there. There we go. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to get this in, come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so that's how it looks once the exhaust is in place. And when you get all the ends right here into where they need to go, these are kind of a tight fit. So this actually holds itself in pretty good, pretty tight. There's really no need to glue any of these in, because that's holding on pretty well. And we're going to then secure it down when we install this piece here with a 1.2 by 4 mil screw. Okay, now on the exhaust, I did do a little bit of weathering. I didn't do a lot, but I do want to share with you what I did. I applied just a little bit of clear yellow all around in different areas of the exhaust here to give him that little bit of a tint look to it. And then I also applied a little bit of clear blue. You probably can't see it too well. And a little bit of clear green. You can see a little bit of the clear green running through here as the light hits it. But I really didn't want to go too heavy on the weathering on this, on the heat treatment on this. I wanted to do it a little bit light. I didn't want to go too heavy. And then over here on the metal grates, it depends upon how the light hits it. But on the metal grates right here, I added a little bit of Tamiya smoke. And it just kind of depends upon how the light hits it, where you can see that. But mostly it's all smoke. I wanted a little bit of that mesh to show through, but I also wanted to show some soot or some carbon exhaust stains that are on the end of that. So that's what I did for the weathering of the exhaust. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get the last piece that goes on here, which is this piece right here, and then after that we start working on the radiator. Okay, now this piece, which is this piece that we're going to be putting in, bring it over here you can see, it's going to go in like this. Now on the back of this there is these little tiny nibs that you might be able to see on camera. They're going to go into this little tiny square area here. And then the screw hole is going to line up with that screw hole there. So this is going to go in kind of sort of like that. And then we're going to secure that in with a 1.2 by 4 mil screw. Okay, that's a little tricky to get in because you have to also put part of it, there's a lip on the top up here that's going to go underneath this part here. So I'm going to make sure that's kind of locked in place. And then of course you want to make sure that those nibs that I showed you before that goes in the square hole is locked in place there. And then it should line you up with that screw hole. But that's how that looks once that's installed. Okay, working on the radiator is pretty involved. From between 16 and 17 there's a lot going on. Constructing the radiator is pretty simple to do. It's very straightforward. It's not hard at all. And there's really nothing much to say about it, except that I'm not going to put this piece on at this point. I'm going to put it on after I've attached the radiator to the bike, because that is a very flimsy piece, and I'm afraid that while attaching it to the bike, this arm could break. So I'm going to put this on last. But I have put some photo etch onto the radiator, as you can see, and I used the photo etch from two different detail sets. From this set here, the photo etch is very light, it's very thin metal, and was very easy to form in this position. But if you're going to use the photo etch from this kit, which I did, and I used it on the back, you have to preform it with your fingers because it is very thick metal. I even tried to preform it around this flashlight. That didn't work. I tried to preform it around something a little bit smaller like this glue bottle here. That didn't work. So I had to use my fingers and just slightly bend it until I got to the form that I needed for this part. And then I painted the radiator the color that it's called for. And then I applied the photo etch on top of the radiator. And then I put the side details on. And that's all I've done so far. And putting the radiator on the bike is pretty simple to do. You've got these little notches right here on both sides. And those little notches are going to go into this hole here and on the other side over here. And then this little hole right here that you see right there is where this part, turn this around, where this is going to attach. So putting the radiator on is going to be pretty simple to do. All you got to do is just line those holes up just like this. Swing it down until that part then reaches that hole that I just pointed out to you, where that hose goes, just like that. And so once this is dried, I'm going to put the radiator on, come back, show you how that looks, and then complete all the other parts. And we also have a hose that we need to attach and a couple more additional detail parts. So I'm going to get all this done, come back and show you what that all looks like. Okay, so the radiator is in, as you can see. And as you position your radiator, this part right here goes right into position where it should go. Not a problem. Okay, now once your radiator is glued in and the glue has set for a while, you can put this part on here, and this is one piece, this one side piece with the hose. That's all one piece, and the end of that hose goes right down into a hole right here, as you can see right there. Okay, very easy to get in, not a problem. I recommend first aligning and putting your side skirt on first, and then as you do that, the hose just kind of self-aligns itself into the hole where it needs to go. Pretty simple. And then this hose that you see right here, move this up a little bit and down. This is just one little tiny hose. That's this right here in the instructions. This piece right here goes right in through here. So once you align it up here, it automatically goes into the hole where it needs to go right there. And then this piece right here that we need to put in, which is in the instructions, this piece right here. you have a little bit of a kind of an indent here. I don't know if the camera can actually see this or not. I can get that in focus. But there is some ridges right here, which is going to go and match into the ridges that you see right here. Then this end right here is going to align up with this figure right here, and then this portion right here ends up in this area here. So the way this is going to go on is I'm going to line it up down here first, and then put that in just like that, and then it plops right into place. We'll get that in. And then after that, we have some hoses we need to do and a couple of more pieces to put onto the radiator, and then we're done and we can move on to the next step. Okay, now next, this part right here is this right here. And all you need to do is underneath this part, you want to put glue here, 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 and here. Now, just for added security, I put a little bit of glue under this part right here, right in this area here, and that just glues right into place, right under this part right here. Just kind of forms around this configuration. So it's a very easy part to put in. Okay, completing the last two parts for step 17 was a little bit more difficult for me because I did the parts in the wrong order. What I should have done was to follow the instructions by putting this part in first, then this part. And as you know, I didn't do that. I put this in first. And as you can see, this part here goes underneath this arm. So I had to do a lot of maneuvering to get this part to go underneath that arm. It's possible, as you can see, I was able to do it, but your life would be a lot easier if you just follow the instructions and put this in first and then put this part in next. But that completes step 17. We have the hose right here that goes right here. It starts from here and then goes behind the radiator cap, and that then completes step 17. Okay, now it's time to start working on the forks, and I'm going to be working off of the fork detail upset, which comes from here. So I'm going to be working off of these instructions as well as these instructions because they're going to be combined. The parts are going to be combined. So what I'm going to start off with here is we're going to at least get going on the main shaft of the instructions right here. So the first thing that they want you to do, they want you to paint these parts in the colors that they called for, which I already have done. And then we're going to start to assemble this. There's also, on this part here, we're going to put on some decals. These are decals for the carbon fiber. So you have one for this part here, and then you have another one which is going to go on to one of these circle parts right here. I'm going to see if I can't kind of walk you through how I'm going to do that, because you don't want to put the decals on the part and then try to slip it through, because one, this is a kind of a hard thing to do. It's pretty stiff, and by handling it with the decal already on, you can actually damage the decal. At least I'm afraid that I will damage it. So I'm going to put the decal on while this part is on the shaft. So the first thing that they want you to do, they want you to take this part here, which is one of these large silver metal parts. I'm going to open this packet up and get one of those parts out. There we go. And that's just going to slip over the shaft, and we're going to put that all the way down. And again, this is a tight fit. Had to go off camera a little bit and really get that past that mark, and then it just goes all the way down like that. So that is a tight fit. It's a little bit difficult to do. Okay, then the next thing they want you to do, they want you to take a ring, and the ring has a hole in it. They want to make sure that that ring is facing up. So with the post in this orientation, in this way around, you want to take your silver ring, and you'll notice that on that ring, again, there is a hole. If I can't, see if I can't find it. Don't know if you can see that or not, but there is a hole right there. So we're going to make sure that that hole is facing up the way it is in the instructions. So I'm going to put it on like this and push that all the way down. Again, it's a tight fit, but that's going to go all the way down just like that. And I'm going to turn it so that the hole is facing up, just like it is in the picture. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. So the hole is facing up in this direction. Okay, then the next thing that they want you to do, they want you to take this piece here, paint it in black, and they want to put that right on top like that. Now, before I do any more parts or pieces, I'm going to put the carbon fiber on this. So let me do that and come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I got the carbon fiber on, and it is best, for me, it worked out really well to put that carbon fiber on that black tube while it's on the post. And you want to make sure that as you're applying that decal that the ends match up perfectly, or as perfectly as you can, so that the lines on that decal line up at the seam, so it almost kind of hides the seam a little bit. And I think I kind of got that. Now it's kind of wet, it might be a little bit hard to see on camera. I'm trying to focus this in, but that's the decal in place. It's still drying, and I am going to be putting a lot of Tamiya Mark Fit Strong on that to soften that decal up and get it to conform to that tube. But that is how I did it, and looks like it's coming up pretty good, so I'm going to continue on, and we'll come back and I'll show you the completed piece. Okay, now that you got your carbon fiber in place and the decal is all dry, you take this piece here, you take this piece and you slip it right down the shaft like this. And again, it's a kind of a tight fit. Goes on just like that. Okay, then we take this piece here, and this is identified as Z6, and that comes off of the sprue that comes off of the fork detail upset, which is this right here. And this piece here that we're going to put on like that, we need to apply another carbon fiber decal. Okay, now that we have the carbon fiber on the small top part right here, we can then put this little tiny piece on, which is a screw on, and this comes from the detail upset. So all you have to do is just take this little tiny round part, and screw that onto the top like that. And it's kind of tight to get in there. We just screw it all the way down. Okay, next, from the instructions from the kit, we have this little tiny part right here, which is this piece right here in the instructions. That little tiny piece right there. And that fits in just like that. I already did this off camera, but that goes in right there. Okay, now next we have this piece right here, which is coming from this detail upset right here. And this is metal, and they want you to also paint the top part in silver, which I've already done. I don't know if the camera can focus in on that. And this is going to be a little tricky because it really is not really going to slip into a hole. It's going to slip into a slot. And that slot is right here. So we need to put a little bit of super glue in there and attach this part in there. And I'm going to do that off camera because this is really a fiddly piece, and it's going to require my magnifying glass headset. And that little metal piece goes in just like that. I'm going to get that focused in for you. Okay, and that completes the left fork assembly, and we repeat the same steps for the right fork. Okay, so now I've got the forks attached to the wheel, and that's how that looks once all that's installed. And this does move back and forth quite a bit because the wheel is supposed to turn like that. Now it is very important that you put the forks on correctly, because on the right side of the forks, on the right side of the bike, there is this hole right here. And that's going to become very important because you're going to be attaching a piece right here that's going to go onto the side of the bike, and it's going to go on the right side of the bike, and you're going to screw it in. This screw hole here is going to go into this screw right here, and then you have another screw that's going to go into the hole that's on the fender of the bike. So it's very important that you get these forks on correctly. And the disc brakes went on just perfectly, not a problem. And that's how the forks look once it's on the wheel. And you'll notice that I did do a little bit of sanding wear on the disc brakes, or on the discs rather, the rotors. because I wanted to show some wear and tear on those rotors there. I wasn't able to put this into my drill, my Dremel drill, so that I could get some nice lines to go in there, so I just used the edge of a sandpaper and did the best I could to create wear marks. But that's how that looks. Okay, I'm not ready to put the fender on yet because I don't have the decals on, and I want to put the decals on and then put a layer of clear coat on top of the decals. So I'm going to get this on after all that's done, but I wanted to at least show you how the fender goes on. You'll notice that there has a little bit of a ridge right here, this little triangle area. Well, the triangle area is on both sides, and then you have a lug right here, a little tiny lug. You can see it right there. It looks like a little dot. The other one on the other side as well. Now those little tiny lugs are going to go into the holes that are in these little silver or gold pieces right here. And those little ridges that I showed you, this little ridge right here, this little triangle piece, that's going to fit down into this ridge right there. So the way this is going to go on, it's going to go on something like this. You want to put this around in this way around, and then you want to slip this in like this. Now I'm not going to really put mine on all the way. I'm just going to kind of like show you a little bit of how this is going to go on. So you want the fork to go all the way to this round area right here. It's almost like it's going to touch it. And then as you're doing that, and as you're manipulating the fender in, you're going to guide that triangle piece down into this area right here. So let me go ahead and first get the decals on, get that clear coat on, and then come back and I'll show you how this looks once it's installed. Okay, so I've got some sub-assemblies over here that I'm still working on. All these pieces right here are from steps 21 through to step 23. And I'm still working on step 23, getting the handlebars all painted up and ready to go. And then on step 24, we have some hoses we have to put in after everything is all assembled on the bike. And then we go on to step 25, which is what these pieces are for. I'll zoom out just a little bit. And the way this goes on is that you take this piece right here, and these two lugs are going to go into these two lug holes here and here. So this is going to go on like that. And this has already been pre-sprayed with a white primer. And then we're going to match it up to, on the other side, to these two lug holes here. And then there is a little bit of a lip on this that's going to go underneath this edge here, and then these 2 points here are going to match up. So there's quite a few points that you got to line up, but the way this is going to go together is just like that. So let me go ahead and get this glued in and ready to sand down and paint, and come back and show you what the end result looks like. Now, step 26 is pretty much of an easy step to do. You just start assembling everything just the way you see it on the picture, and then you start to prepare the piece to be painted. And the way they want you to do this is they want you to go ahead and pre-paint these parts right here in the colors that they call for. Then they want you to mask it all off, and then so that you can paint this up with the silver blue type metallic color, the blue color. And then they want you to put on the decal. I'm not going to really do it in the steps in which they lay out. This has got to be painted in blue. And this whole bottom assembly right here, all this that you see right here in white in the completed picture, is in that silver color. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to paint this whole entire thing right up in this area here, silver. Then I'm going to paint this, the blue color that it's asking for. These two pieces right here, this piece here, and then the piece that we're going to be working on in step 25, I'm going to paint that in blue. Then I'm going to put everything together. That way I don't have to do a lot of masking. So when we come back, hopefully I'll have 26 done, and I'll show you what this all looks like. Okay, you can see that I've got the fender installed on the wheel, and this was a difficult piece to put on. It took me quite a while to do it. My biggest problem was trying to align the holes of those silver pieces right here, or the gold pieces, onto the lugs that are inside the fender. And as an after effect build tip, or after the fact build tip, I recommend doing this. when you're putting the sleeves onto your forks, glue the ends, just the edges of this gold piece here, to the ends of these two sleeves. Being careful so that as you're gluing them, they don't actually glue onto the shaft, because you want this to be able to turn. And when you put your fender onto the wheel, then you can turn this and align those lugs up to the hole onto those gold sleeves a little bit easier. My problem was that I had to manually or individually turn those gold rings around to lock that into place. I also put in just a little bit of super glue on there to anchor that into place, and I put just a little bit of glue down here to also anchor that into place. But that's our fender in place, as you can see. And I also added a couple of other parts here, completing the stage. I put this, I don't know what this is, more probably some sort of a cover that goes around the disc brake here. This actually slides right into the brake, as you can see there. It slides right onto that. So as you slide this into the groove that's on this piece here, you just move it right on up, and it fits right into that lug that's on the fender, and you glue that here, and you put just a little bit of glue right there, and that anchors that into place. And then of course we got our brakes in as well. Okay, so now that completes all the steps all the way up through to step number 23. And in step 23, I've already painted these up. The dashboard, for the lack of a better term, or the handlebar mount or whatever this is. And then we got our handlebars. Now, the handles here, the grips, I'm not going to glue those on. Well, I'm not going to glue them on even when I'm done with the build. But I'm not going to permanently attach these handles on, because as you're building the bike, and you're putting the bike down on its side like this, it would be very easy to break those handles off. And I know from experience that that happens, because that happened to me once before. So I'm going to put those handles on as the last step. But I have painted these up in the color that they need to be, and also added the decals. I did do a little bit of coloring on these parts right here, these fluid containers. I thought just adding just a little bit of color there was a good idea. For me anyway, I just kind of I didn't like the too white, so I wanted to put something else on there. Alright, so next what we need to do in step 23 is we need to attach our wheel to our bike, and that's pretty simple to do. With the wheel in this position here, you have this center lug right here, which is going to go through this hole right here. And then these two posts right here are going to go on both sides of the bike, and then we're going to attach our dashboard or our handle mount right on top, just like that when it's on the bike. And then we're going to take a 1.6 by 16 mil screw and secure all that in. So basically this is going to go on just like this. You want to be careful about your hose, and you want to make sure that the hose doesn't get entangled, and put your mount in just like that. So it goes on just like that. And then you take your handlebar right here, this way around, put those on just like that, and then we're going to put that screw right down in the center. So I'm going to get that done, and I'll be right back. Okay, so part of the assembly of the front wheel, as you can see I've got that attached, is to put this piece in right here, which you can see is called for in step 28, or excuse me, 23. And we secure that in with two 1.2 by 2.5 screws. Now the best way that I found to get this on here, the easiest way that I found to get that on there, was to first attach this part to the fork area first. Then attach your wheel assembly and get the handlebars in secured, and then attach the other end over here to the bike. That's the easiest way I found to get that in there. This is a very fiddly piece, and it does take a lot of patience to put that in, but once it's in, that's how that looks once that is all installed. Okay, then moving on to step number 24, we have a whole bunch of hoses to put in, and let me get all those on and I'll be right back. Okay, I decided not to put all the piping on yet, because a couple of these pipes actually go onto the handles, and I'm not going to put the handles on permanently on the bike until the very end. So I've only done part of the tubing. This tube right here, which is this right here, is attached to the handlebar there. And then once this is actually going to be on the bike, I'm going to put this on the bike, this lug right here that you can maybe might be able to see right there, it's going to attach to the end of this tube right here. And that tube runs all the way to this junction right here. And then we take another tube and we attach it to the bottom of that junction, and we then attach it to the brake right down here. And then we do basically the same thing on the other side. We take a tube and we attach it to this lug right here on the fork, and then run it all the way down to the top of the brake here. And then this tube right here that you see dangling, which is really connected back here, this is going to end up on this handlebar going into this lug right here. And then, but that's all the tubes that I'm going to put on right now. But that's how the bike is looking right now with those partially with all those tubes in. Okay, now we're going to be working on steps 25 and 26, and I've already basically have completed that. This is how 25 should look once that is all installed, and also part of 26. So this has all been painted up, and all of our decals are on it. And that completes us all the way down to this step down here, which is step number 26. So now we move on to step number 25, or excuse me, 27, where we attach our gas tank, which I've already got painted as well in the colors that it's asking for. And the way this is going to go on is that, according to the instructions, this is not going to get glued in. So the way this is going to go on is that these ridges right here, these protrusions, are going to fit on top of this ledge that's going across right here. And then there's a lug here on the side, on both sides, and those two lugs are going to go into these two recesses, one here, one there, and one on the other side. And it's just going to snap right into place. This is going to be a very tight fit, and I'm going to probably have to do this off camera, but the way that this is basically going to go in, and you may have to spread the ends back here a little bit in order to get that in, to kind of wedge it into place. And I'm going to do this off camera and show you what that looks like once that's in. Okay, so I got the gas tank partially in like that, and I'm going to try to push that in forward to where it snaps into place. This lug right here is going to go behind that screw hole, or that other lug right there. Trying to get that in, and then also on the other side. So this might require a little bit of careful manipulation, and I might need my magnifying glasses to do this so I can see what I'm doing. So let me get those in, and I'll be right back. Okay, I got that in. That's how that looks once all that is in, and this is in as far forward as I can get it, and it does not go flush here on the back. You can see those little silver lugs right there, these little silver pins. They don't go flush to the sides of this piece right here. So that's as far in as they're going to go, and they are in that little recess there. You can see the little bit of that recess right there. And then those are the ridges that are in underneath that plastic piece right here, this bar. And this is as far in as it's going to go. I've snapped it in, and when it went in, I heard it snap. So that's as far in as it's going to get. But that's how that looks once that's installed. At least that's how mine looks when it's installed. Okay, so what we need to do next after that is in, we need to get our seats in, which I already have painted in the colors that it's asking for. And this has a little kind of a raised area here that's going to go on top of that little circle right there. So this is going to go on just like that, and it kind of fits right in there like so. And you know it's in because you can't move it. It's actually stuck in there. I'm going to glue that in a little bit later. And then we have our back seat right here, and that's just going to go on the back of the seat looking like that. So this is how that's going to look once all that's all done. And then we have a couple of more other pieces we have to do. We have to do this right here. I'm going to get this all painted up, and this little bit right there, and then we'll finally be able to attach this whole assembly onto the bike. Okay, I've been working on stage or step 28, and it's time to now put this piece onto this assembly that we've been working on. And this is pretty simple. What this is going to do is that you have a lug right here, and that's going to go into that hole right there. And then the end right over here is going to slip into this area back here, and it's going to be kind of a tight fit. You almost have to wedge that in there to get that to lie flat, but it's supposed to go in something like that. If I can kind of show you. This is going to be kind of a little bit of a difficult piece to put in because it's going to be wedged in and almost doesn't even really need any glue because it's in there so tight. But I'll get this on and come back and show you what that all looks like. Okay, so once that this bottom piece is installed, that's how that looks. And quite frankly, back here, this is how this should look in the back, and it just kind of wedges in into those little slots right here. And that's a tight fit. So essentially this entire piece really doesn't need glue except at the very tip up here where you need glue for the lug hole that I showed you, so this will fit nice and flush like that. But otherwise this actually fits in nice and tight. Now once you have this piece in, we're going to now install it onto the bike. And the way the instructions show it is, it's almost a little misleading, but these screw holes here, I'm not going to really call them screw holes because no screws are going to go into these two holes, but these screw holes, for the lack of a better term, are going to slip into a notch that's right underneath this screw hole here. So if you look at the piece right here, you'll notice that there is a little bit of an indent right here, and it's on both sides. I don't know if the camera can actually see that or not. I'll zoom in. There you go. So they're going to go right underneath the screw hole right in through there. And you're going to line that up to these two screw holes right here. So the way this is going to go on is that I'm going to slip those in. See if I can't do this on camera. Just like that. And then I'm going to push it down. And when I push it down like that, the screw hole down here aligns up where we're going to fix this in with a 1.2 by 2 mil screw. Okay, that went in without any problems at all, and if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that that does not always happen to me. I usually have some sort of a problem with trying to get something to fit right, but that went in smooth as a glove. In fact, it went in perfect as I was showing you how it went in. So the only thing I did was just slightly move it around to align those screw holes right down here, and it went in just perfectly. Okay, so I'm going to continue now on with the build. We've got more parts to put on to the top piece up here, and then we're going to start then working on the gas tank up and through here. So what I'm going to do now, because this video is starting to get really super long, I'm going to just continue building this, and if there's anything that comes up that I think you should know, I'll come back and show you what that is. Okay, I just now completed step 31, getting the gas tank onto the motorcycle, and that was a chore. It's a chore in and of itself just to get this part onto the gas tank. This part here, which is two parts, a clear part and a black part, does not have a locating lug. There is no locating lug that actually snaps this assembly onto the gas tank. It's more of trying to get it to fit to the form and the curvature of the gas tank. And it's just not an easy fit to do. It's just real a pain. And then the other frustration is that when you're trying to screw in the gas tank onto the motorcycle using the 1.2 by 2.5 mil screw, as I was using their screwdriver, putting that screwdriver into that hole, this part popped right off. So, and then also to trying to line that screw, the hole through this part right here, through this, through the gas tank onto the bike, that was also very not easy to do because it was very difficult for me to see the screw hole. So what I ended up doing was, because it already broke off, and it broke off on both sides, I went ahead and just secured the gas tank onto the bike, and then we're using the screw, and then afterwards I glued this part back on. And because it was so difficult for Tamiya thin cement to actually secure that in properly, I actually just put in a little tiny bead of super glue along the curvature right here and super glued that piece in. And I did that on both sides. The other thing that you need to do when you attach this motorcycle is you want to make sure, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, is that on this handlebar that you can see now that I've got already attached to the bike, it is not glued in, it's just attached. There is a hose that runs from this handlebar all the way underneath where the dashboard is, or the speedometer, underneath the handlebar assembly, and it goes into a little hole or notch from the gas tank right there. And there is enough room to easily put that hose through that little notch after it's already attached to the bike. But that's the gas tank attached to the bike, and that's how that looks once that's all done. There is this Z right here for the Suzuki, or S, I'm sorry, for the Suzuki is a photo etch part that I painted up and super glued onto the gas tank. And then I also put 2 or 3 layers of Tamiya clear on top of the blue and buffed all that up to a nice shine. So that's why that looks like how it looks. So that's the gas tank on. I also put this piece on right here. This is also a photo etch part. And these little tiny rivets right here, those are also little tiny photo etch parts as well, or metal parts. And they're all painted up to the colors that are called for in the instructions. Its counterpart on the other side of the bike is also attached using the photo etch part. Okay, so that's it for step number 31, and I am in the process right now of painting up the cowl and getting that all prepared to go onto the bike, and then working on the side cowls. So when that's all done, come back and show you what that all looks like. Okay, on step 32, when working with a cowl, there is 2 little tiny pieces that you have to put in underneath or in the back side of the cowl. And these are very, very small pieces. As you can see, that one right here I've already got painted. And they're very light. There is no lug. It does not snap in. It actually balances into a groove that's on each side here. This really should have been all one piece. This should have been basically all molded together onto the cowl. But at any rate, it is what it is. But the way this goes in, you'll notice that there is what might look like a lug. See if I can't zoom in on this for you. I'm going to zoom in. There it is. See that there's a little bit of a lug right there. Now that is really a balancing lug. It's going to balance this into the position that it needs to go in. As you're balancing it into the groove that you see right here. See if the camera can't zoom in. Having a problem with zooming this in. There we go. And it's going to go into this little groove right here. So don't know if I can actually show you this on camera, but the way this is going to go in is going to be something like this. And it's really difficult to get in. You can see how difficult it is for me to get this in. Okay, I actually put that in off camera, but that's how that balances in. And because it's so difficult to get in there, if I used Tamiya thin cement, it's going to mess up all that paint. And it's probably going to also mess up that part as well. So I'm going to first put that in using micro crystal clear, this right here. And then once the glue is dried, I'll reinforce it with a little bit of Tamiya thin cement. But I wanted to show you how that is going to go in, and that's how that looks once that is in place. And that just balances right in there. Okay, there's that part in. I'm still waiting for the crystal clear to dry, and then I will probably fine-tune its position just slightly, but you want to make sure that it is basically at the edge of the cowl, and then trying to get that gap also a little bit more flush. But that's how that looks once that's in. And you want to put one in at a time, because you need to have that glue dry before you do the other side. Otherwise this is going to just flop right out. Now these chipping that you see here in the back on that black paint, I really don't care about it because you're not going to see it anyway once this is attached to the bike. But that's the part as it looks right now, attached to the back of the cowl. Okay, I wanted to at least give a 360 view of the bike as it is at this stage. We're just at the point where we're going to attach all the cowls, the front, the sides, and also the one that goes underneath. But I wanted to at least give a view of what the bike does look like at this stage. Now there is one thing I do want to point out as the bike is going to come around here. I'm going to stop the turntable. Now right here, I don't know if hopefully the camera can actually see this or not, but this right here, this little post that comes out, that's what is going to secure or help secure the front cowl onto the bike. And I had to trim that down quite considerably in order to get that cowl to go on, in order for it to attach down here to this lug down here that's on the radiator. Yours might be a little bit too long as well. I've built 2 or 3 of these motorcycles. I did the Ducati. I also did the Yamaha, and on those 2 bikes I had to cut this post that comes out that attaches or helps secure the front cowl onto the bike. But that's really about the only real modification that I had to do to this bike. But anyway, I wanted to show you what the bike looks like at this stage, and I'm going to start to put those cowls on. When I'm done, I'll come back and show you what the completed model looks like. Okay, the model is done. The bike is complete, as you can see, and it turned out really well. I'm really pleased the way this actually turned out. Now, the big problem with this bike that I personally had was getting the cowls on. The front cowl, which comes all the way down to here, and then you've got the side cowl here, and then of course you got the bottom one. And the bottom one basically secures almost everything in. You secure this cowl in with a screw up here, and that kind of locks this cowl in right down here. And then you've got the bottom cowl, which kind of secures almost everything in. And that was really difficult for me to do, because you got to do it for the front and both sides of the bike, as well as have a free hand in order to get the screws in that are required to secure those cowls in. But other than that, everything went in just fine. I'm going to go ahead and turn the turntable on for you. And you can see a 360-degree view of the bike. Now, I realized that video was 2 hours long, and then my intent was to give you a full detailed build of this bike, exactly how it's put together, what you need to do, give you some build tips, go through the painting, the decals, the detail upset, the photo etch, and so on and so forth. And I hope that that was all helpful for you in case you're looking at this video to find out exactly how this bike is put together. Now, I did put in the video descriptions a table of contents that will help you fast forward to the part of the video that you're most interested in. But I really do hope this was a very informative video for you, and that you'll give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, please remember to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so that you can be notified of new videos that I posted. Other than that, always have fun in your garage, your workshop, or wherever it is that you build your models. And until next time, thanks for watching.